The only charity which helps victims of male rape in Greater Manchester could close because of lack of funding. Survivors Manchester, it's called, and it's the only one that can give counselling to men. The rest of rape crisis and rape advice centres are, of course, focused on female rape victims. Now, it's never had a grant from the council, but it says donations from other council-funded organisations are drying up because of a lack of cash.
Good evening, Survivors Manchester. How can I help you?
Been abused. I was sexually abused. 3 separate people. Once when I was, I say once, it happened on many occasions, but it started, from what I can remember, from about sort of 6 onwards, and that carried on off the same person. Then it sort of started again with somebody else, and it also happened again from the age of like sort of 16 up until about 22.
Jamie is one of the many men who sought help at the charity Survivors Manchester. He was raped at a young age.
You know, there was someone, it wasn't sort of consensual. I was being spied with drugs, and ended up finding some photographs and stuff like that, and that's when I sort of realised what was going on, and didn't know what to do with it apart from take more drugs. And I had an habit on drugs at the age of 15. And
what were you taking?
Heroin and crack.
Just block it out.
Yeah, I was just chaotic, to be honest with you. Which led to, like, up until I met, come into contact with survivors, I was like either sort of homicidal, suicidal, imploding, exploding. I didn't know what was going on.
Good evening, Survivors Manchester.
Duncan Craig is the voice you'll hear on the end of the phone. He set up Survivors Manchester after being a victim of rape himself. It's the only service in Greater Manchester and one of a handful in the country that works with men who've been raped or sexually abused. According to Duncan, there could be as many as 200,000 men across the region who've been abused.
What we know from research is that, and this is there isn't tons of research worldwide, but the bits of research that there is out there, we know that there's about 1 in 6 men have had an unwanted sexual experience before the age of 18. We also know the difference between male and female is that men on average will take about 20 years to disclose. So you've got 20 years worth of what we call unhealthy coping mechanisms. So if someone's not spoken about it, then for 20 years they've had to find ways of keeping this stuff locked down.
Survivors Manchester used to be able to offer a face-to-face, email and telephone counselling service, but over-the-phone counselling has ended because of a lack of funding. Duncan says it's vital, though,
to tell us what's happened to them, if they want to do that, to talk about how they're feeling, without actually... One person once described to me as, I can do this because you don't see the whites of my eyes.
And Jamie says the charity needs funding and needs to continue because men out there need its services.
The level of support that I got is potentially not going to be there, and if you think how much I've cost the government over the years, I shudder to think.
Where do you think you would be without Survivors?
Well, that's pretty simple, really. I'd either be dead or I'd be in jail, one of the two.
Dead or jail. Survivors Manchester, the charity's Police for Help, comes as a national BBC survey reveals that government cuts have left a divide between councils in the north and those in the south. In the north, less will be spent on the vulnerable, but in the south, more will be spent on adult social care. We got more on that throughout the programme